Hi everyone, you're watching Good for the Game TV. We're live on a Monday night at 7:30. It's time to talk Tour de France. We've had a very exciting first week of the Tour de France. I must admit, when I set up the show, I didn't think we'd be spending too much time on stage 10. It had a pretty straightforward look to it. A week break was going to be allowed to get away, and it was going to get reeled in, and the sprinters were going to fight it out to the finish. Of course, it ended up being anything but. Crosswinds intervened, and we had a very exciting stage. And well, quite frankly, our biggest shake-up yet on the GC. If you are new to our show, then please go down below this video, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified of all of our videos. For those rugby fans, we got Use It or Lose It at 9 o'clock. That's at 9 o'clock South African time. And yeah, we do quite a few shows, including a rugby betting show, and I am previewing each and every stage of the Tour de France as well. Let's get right into things, though, and introduce you to the panel. And I'm going to start off in Edinburgh, I believe, and it's Will Newton on Twitter. He's at Inside Peloton 96. He does previews for each and every stage, detailed previews on Twitter, which I must admit for me is an absolute must-read before I do my video preview. Will, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Brent. Yeah, I am indeed in Edinburgh right now, but I am a native Mancunian from Manchester in England.
Okay, Manchester in England, right. And someone who lives quite far away from Manchester in England. He lives in George in South Africa. It's Couch Critic. He's a master of all sports. He loves his F1. He loves his rugby. But I think, Couch, it's probably fair to say that Tour de France is your favorite 3 weeks of the year, just like me.
Yeah, Brent, I must say, I think it's the first time that we're talking cycling, and it's great, different speed. And I think actually the nice thing about cycling, it's almost like there's different segments for everyone. So you've got the different types of riders, and that's what makes it exciting. You know, it's not just one prize and one type of rider that you're watching, or who can do something. So that's brilliant.
Excellent. Well, I won't spend too much time with you on stage 10 because I know you weren't able to see much of it today, but Will saw quite a bit of it. And well, it really was. I mean, we were saying just before the show now, it really has actually been. I mean, we've had a team time trial. We've had the big mountaintop finish up on stage 6. But the stage, which was meant to be just a regulation transitional stage, really, has actually had the most GC losses and gains. And the likes of Pinot, Uran, Port, they all lost time today, all because of the crosswinds. It was hell of exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous, the carnage that unfolded. As some of the preview readers might know, I did say there was going to be some crosswinds, but it did not happen until probably about 20k after I predicted. And it was on those roads that Ineos, I think EF kicked it off first, didn't they?
But then EF kicked it off, and then Quick Step came to the front, I believe, and then Ineos took over.
Yeah, as soon as Quick Step and Ineos are at the front and the wind is blowing, hold on to your blooming handlebars, because Jesus, it is going. And it went, and Egan Bernal, Geraint Thomas, they all gained today. I'm just really sad that Pinot lost a lot of time, because he was my pick pre-tour. And George Bennett as well. I know he wasn't touted as one of the big GC guys, but where was he at the start of the day? 4th in GC. Only Pinot was ahead of him in terms of general contenders. And Jumbo-Visma send him back to the team car to get bottles at, I think it was about 30k to go, just before the crosswinds were coming. I think EF were even hammering it on the front at this point, and they send him back. Their GC man. I know he's not as good as Stephen Kruijswijk, but he could have at least ridden a top 10. It just, I'm dumbfounded.
It baffles the mind somewhat. It was quite interesting to stay with you there, Will. It was quite interesting to see the dynamic with the Movistar. Quintana actually was playing very nice and handy. He made the split. There were a number of Movistar guys in the split, but Landa was caught in the third group. And then what they did was it looked like they left Valverde up front to sort of stay with Quintana, and they actually dropped 3 or 4 riders back to try and at least keep Landa in touch.
Yeah, they did. I saw Quintana right on the front as Alaphilippe was just nailing it and putting the hammer down. Quintana was right in his wheel. And I know Alaphilippe's a small rider, but Quintana is even smaller. So behind them two, I don't know who the third guy was, but he must have been hammering it as well. So yeah, see Quintana up there is a massive surprise. Obviously, Valverde, no, because he's always at the front. And Landa, he has a habit of just getting caught out in these splits. I think it is interesting they sent some guys back, because out of those 3, Landa was the one I was thinking who was going to be more of the super domestique than Valverde, for example. But then after La Planche to Belfi stage, it sort of switched. So I saw Valverde more as the super dom, and Landa maybe as their second-rate choice. And I think that's shown today. That's why they sent 3 guys back, because Landa is obviously feeling really good. probably has told the team he can go for GC. Otherwise, I don't think they'd have sent 3 guys back.
Couch, let me bring you in here. Just looking at some of the time losses today on the stage, the likes of Pino and that losing 1.5 minutes. I mean, obviously, it's all played into Ineos's hands here. Geraint Thomas has shortened. I've seen him as short as 13 to 20 now in the outright betting. Bernal, second favourite. My man Quintana has moved into around the 10 to 1 mark. But with those players losing time, we may be a bit of a knock for the rest of the race. On the other hand, it kind of forces them to throw caution to the wind. And hopefully we'll get the likes of Fuslang and Richie Port going early.
Yeah, Brett, I think it's got to be so depressing for someone like Pino. You know, he's been trying to steal a few seconds here and there with quite a lot of hard work and quite a lot of effort, and then you lose it today on something that was supposed to be simple. You know, I think those are kind of the worst things. And I've actually came on going to say on this chat that the first, you know, until the first race day, the only thing you try and do is stay out of trouble. You know, you can't win the Tour de France, but you can lose it in that first segment. And I think almost all the favourites, you know, kept their noses clean and until today, where really it's bad news for some of them. And I mean, we could see, we always knew it wasn't going to happen for someone like Nibali. He was out early, and Valverde again, which I actually think was pretty good news for Quintana. You know, as Will said, it's nice having two contenders because you can play the double card, but it's also nice when you've got 3 strong guys to just know that, you know, you're number 1 and these guys are going to work. So at least, you know, he knows he's got Valverde, and he might even have Landa now, even though they did drop a few guys back. I think it's pretty good for us who on Quintana, but I also had a nibble on Pino, and that was that's a shock of a stage. He's still going to lose a little bit more in the individual time trial as well. So as you say, I mean, they're going to have to attack in those four big stages after the individual. Then they're really going to have to go hell for leather. You know, the guys like FDJ are going to have to push it. Obviously, no one was really expecting too much from Port, but it's disappointing. I think he was looking quite racy, and all of a sudden he's really behind the 8 ball. So yes, it's taken quite a lot of guys, giving them a serious setback. But as you said, we might see some interesting racing in the last 10 days or so.
Right, well, I want to come to you on Pino there, because what interested me, and this is just going back a couple of days in the first week, I think it was Sunday's stage when him and Alaphilippe came in second and third, and there was that late attack. And it was a great move in the sense that he gained some time there, but I kept getting the feeling that, is he working too hard? Is he doing, I think it was Yates last year in the Giro, is he working too hard too early? Is he putting too much in? Would he have been better off actually sitting in the pack with others?
No, I don't think he's doing as much work as Yates did in that Giro. Like, Yates was actively going out by himself. Like, for example, this attack Pino followed from Alaphilippe, I think it was a spur of the moment thing. He was obviously on the front of the group. He saw Ala go and just thought, you know what, I'm going to follow that. And I don't think he didn't give Alaphilippe many turns, probably because he couldn't, because Alaphilippe is a phenomenal descender. So he did put a lot of effort in, but apart from that, has he really been aggressive enough the front? I don't really think he has. He tried a little something on the final climb on the La Planche de Belfi stage, but it didn't really pay off that much. So no, I don't think he's going to burn out. He's an incredible 3-week racer, and he's not really doing what Simon Yates did, I don't think.
Yeah, certainly not yet. I guess there hasn't been enough climbs in that really to be that aggressive yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see over coming days. Just talking of climbs, I mean, this Tour de France, Will, is I can't recall one with as many sort of high mountains in as we got, and we of course haven't come to them yet. So we've got a lot of climbing at high altitude, and that. Who are the riders that are going to be favoured by that?
So I think so. A lot of things I've been reading have been saying this is the highest tour we've had in I don't know how many years. Some people say it's the highest ever. I probably doubt that. But for example, like the Col de Tourmalet that comes on stage 14, I think it is, or 15, that's been the highest mountain for a couple of editions. And this year, I think it's not even in the top 5.
Wow.
So that just puts into perspective how much climb we've got to do and the altitude we actually go up to. So yeah, in terms of altitude, obviously it's going to suit like Quintana, it's going to suit Iran, all these Colombian guys. Geraint Thomas as well. I've never really seen him crumble at altitude. Kruijswijk is another. He's just, to say he comes from the Netherlands, I just don't know how he survives up those high mountains. It's ridiculous, but he's probably one of the most consistent GCs I've ever seen, because his ability in the high mountains is so consistent and good.
Right, well, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here because I want to talk about today's stage winner, Wout van Aert, who's really impressed me. I watched him ride a bit of cyclocross. We don't get a lot of coverage here in South Africa on that, but I've seen him before, so I've known the name quite well. And I'll go to Couch now, but let me start with you, Will. I was saying at the start of the tour when I did my preview for the green jersey, it's even though I don't think Peter Sagan is at his best, I think it's race over. You know, there's no one else is consistent. But the one man that I did identify, and I said, if this guy was racing for himself and racing for the green jersey, we'd have an absolute royal battle on our hands for green.
Definitely, yeah. He seems to, in a way, is quite a similar rider to Matthews in that he's great at these uphill sprints. He can challenge in the main sprints. He's a phenomenal TTer, but he just has that edge that I don't think Matthews has, that top end speed in the final sprint. And we've seen Matthews challenging for green. I mean, he went and won it that year. Sagan was kicked off the tour and Kittel crashed out in the mountains. But in the future, yeah, definitely, if Jumbo-Visma put some more resources behind him and don't focus too much on Groenewegen, he could definitely win green. But I just can't see them backing a Belgian. They're always going to go with the Dutchman, which is Groenewegen. So he might have to move teams, in my opinion, if he wants to take green, if Groenewegen's going to carry on at the top.
Could be. And Katch, I know you said you saw the final sprint today. Obviously, very impressed with him, and like your comments on him as a future green jersey contender. And also just on Matthews' sprint. I mean, he had a perfect lead out. He had sort of 4 or 5 of his team leading out. And then just as the lead out finished, it seemed like Matthews wasn't ready. And everyone stormed over him. And he finished, in the end, he actually was gaining ground. Now, I'm speaking from the pocket here because I backed Matthews to finish on the podium at 5-1. And he finished 4th. What did you make of that?
Brent, just on Sunweb, I think a few stages back we saw a quick step. First, they pulled it off beautifully for Viviani. I mean, when you're the front 4 guys, it's almost impossible for someone to come around the outside, and you set the guy up perfectly. And I mean, it's like Mario Cipollini-esque, you know, no one could get close when he launches from there. So that was just brilliant the way they did it. And then I think it was a stage later when Groenewegen took it. He couldn't make use of that brilliant lead out. And I think it was the same. The Sunweb guys, I don't know what they say to each other over dinner because they've been trying to tee up Matthews like time and time again. And he's almost, always the unlucky loser there. He keeps pipping in for some good results, but he just can't do the business. And, how long do you keep on pushing and keep on putting all that effort in? And it actually, I think, creates a lot of pressure on the sprinter per se. I know he's not an outright sprinter, but the team doing so much work for you and you're just not being able to finish it. It's a tough place to be. And then going straight on to Wout van Aert, and that's, you'll know we've talked a lot about cycling. I love the mountain goats. I'm all about the climbing, and I love seeing the Quintanas, and there was nothing better than Schleck and Contador going one-on-one and looking in each other's eyes and saying what you got left up a steep climb. I love that. But even almost more than that is the pure, pound for pound cyclists like Alaphilippe. You got to love those guys. Even Sagan, it must be so weird either as a climber, almost domestic climber, or as a sprinter, thinking you work so hard for a stage win in your specific discipline, and you get this guy who can do it in multiple terrains. And I actually think that Wout van Aert can move to that type of thing. I think he's very good on a descent. I think he can handle like a little bit more of those uphill kind of things. I think he pulled the plug quite early in this tour. I expected him to be a little bit more racy in something like stage 8. I think he tried to get in the break that first up, but then Alaphilippe buggered him by joining the split. So that wasn't great. And I would have liked to see him have a go on something like that. So as you said, Bean is it, but I wonder whether he can't actually move more towards a Alaphilippe than Sagan on that type of plane. Sagan is a little bit more towards the sprint, Alaphilippe a little bit more punchy and able to handle the climbs. And I'd love to see where Wout van Aert can come in that spectrum. And as I say, I mean, I just love those type of riders. And then I'd like to go straight into a guy that I've been extremely impressed with is Jasper Stuyven. I think he's had an incredible tour. I mean, he's in the sprints, he just keeps popping in for top 10s, does the job there, picking up some points. And then we could see, I mean, he's been able to survive over some hills, and he even got in the break. And obviously, I was pretty pissed that he didn't make a top 3 there the other day. But he's really impressed me. I think he's been so consistent, and he's almost been the opposite of Matthews. He's just kept kept delivering above and beyond whatever his team has tried to do. So I think he's been pretty special. And then Zandro Molise, I don't know if that's how you say it. He's caught the eye of Wanty. I think he's really ridden a very competitive race. I've been really impressed by those two guys this year thus far.
And we'll come in across to you as we end off the first 10 stages. Anybody that's caught your eye, not necessarily GC contenders, but just guys who perhaps performed a bit better than you've expected?
I'd have to agree with Couch on Zandro Murisa. He has been absolutely phenomenal. Once a Group Go Bear rider, just mixing it with the World Tour guys. On stage 3 on that crazy, I was going to say summit finish, it wasn't a summit finish, the uphill finish into that housing estate, which Alaphilippe won. He was incredible on that, and getting in the break on La Planche de Belfi. I mean, I've never really seen him as I don't think he's going to be a GC contender, but I've never really seen him climb this well. I've always just seen him as almost like a workhorse for Wanty, but he's really coming to his own. So yeah, he's one of my picks. I think Thomas again, obviously, can't leave the conversation without mentioning Thomas again. I think George Bennett as well. I've really been impressed by him, and it's just such a shame that his team let him down today, because I think he could have ridden a really, really good race.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, now he's obviously out of it from the overall contention, or even probably a top 10 place. So a bit of a pity about that. Let's look ahead though, Will, to the next few days. I mean, the next couple of days we've got we're starting to hit the climbs fairly soon. I mean, on the weekend we really get stuck into the climbs. So some of the guys, I mean, Thomas, the bookmakers have got Thomas as a massive favourite. He's obviously got a strong team behind him. He's got Bernal there as well. I was amazed by how the betting shifted after, I think it was it stage? Yeah, it was after stage 6 when Thomas sort of gained a bit of time on a few guys there. I think Pinot finished with him. And there was a massive shift where Bernal was previously favourite at about 2-1 and Thomas at around 7-2. And all of a sudden the betting shifted and Thomas was into even money favourite and Bernal was pushed out. And I thought that might be a bit of an overreaction from the bookmakers, especially given the high mountains to come.
Yeah, I think they've definitely jumped the gun on that. But I think a lot of them, even me and a lot of people I know, we were expecting Thomas to, because that climb, even in his own opinion, didn't suit him. Yeah. Those sort of climbs don't suit him. He's much more adapted to the longer climbs, longer kilometres, more at high altitude. So it was a massive surprise to see him. I think he followed Alaphilippe, didn't he? Following Alaphilippe on that climb. So whilst he gained, 5 seconds on Bernal, which is hardly a gap in this race, it's that whole team dynamic thing. It just showed that he was physically stronger on a finish that was more suited to Bernal. So, and I know a lot of people were questioning his form before the race because we haven't seen him really race this year. He crashed out of Suisse too early to see how he was in the mountains. But there was a lot of talk from the guys in the peloton that I heard that said he was absolutely flying before we were going into the tour. So I was really excited to see that stage, see if he was flying, and lo and behold, he was.
Right, so he's going to be one to watch. Anybody you can see, okay, so we got Thomas, we got Bernal. Obviously, the Ineos stranglehold is going to be hard to break on the race. They've already got themselves into, let's call it, pole position behind Alaphilippe without really doing anything extreme. Of the teams behind them, who the challengers, and what sort of tactics can we look out for?
Right, I'm looking at the GC now. To be fair, I think the main challengers is Nairo Quintana and Movistar. And I think that's because Movistar are such an experienced team. They are so focused on this race. And Quintana, this route suits him down to the ground with all the high altitude. And the fact that the time trial comes so early, that yes, he'll lose time in the time trial, but then he's got a lot of stages to make it up. Whereas usually he loses time in the time trial when it's so close to the end of the race, there's just no time left. So Nairo Quintana, big threat, especially with domestiques like Valverde and Marc Soler and Mikel Landa behind him. Stephen Kruijswijk, I never see him as a threat, and I don't think he'll be a threat, but I think he could just ride himself onto the podium because of the kind of rider he is. Same with Buchmann. I see him as a potential top 5, just riding himself into it. Because the aggressive riders, the ones that could actually really scupper the chances of Ineos, like Pinot, Bardet, Fuglsang. I say Fuglsang not because he's an explosive rider, but because Astana are so good at just breaking a race apart. those three are now far down because of today's stage. So they're playing catch up.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I'm going to go to Couch now because Buchman in particular, you'll know, I backed him at, I think, 17-1 for a podium up front. And I got an alarming news on my forum. I think it was after the first stage that he was gone, but that was before the times were corrected. And he's come in and he's riding some pretty solid stuff there, Couch. As Will says, potential top 5 contender. I'm hoping he might even be a top 3 contender. And I'd agree with Will's assessment there that Quintana is probably the main danger with a strong Movistar team. And then I still think, just given the climbs that lie ahead, it's fairly open. I mean, it's probably Ineos's race as long as their guys don't show weakness. But if there is a sign of weakness, we could have an absolutely chaotic finish to this one.
Brent, as you say, I think the big issue is that it's both Ineos riders still in there and right at the top. You know, if it was just one of them, you're in a better spot for some of the other guys. But I mean, the big action, we'll know a lot. We saw a little bit of a shake-up today, but I mean, that's not real in terms of the power or performance or anything. And that's the Friday, Saturday double of ITT going into the Tourmalet. I think that's going to be, I mean, we're going to know a lot about the Tour come Sunday and come Monday. So that's going to be the big one. And I mean, even some of the guys like Enric Mas and, someone who might not have looked that great up stage 6, I wouldn't, write the guy off because of what he did in 6. 6 was very specific and it's short and sharp and explosive. And I mean, it's the first time up in the Tour, so sometimes your legs just aren't quite there. These are long hauls, long slogs that you need to get into that rhythm and really grind it out and find your pace and find your place or your comfort zone, if you can call it that, and then hit it from there. So that's going to be really interesting. I mean, the Tourmalet with 12%, almost at 7%, and then up and down, and then you 19% at 7.5. I mean, that's incredible. So after that, there's just no hiding. And as we said, more time for Pino and those Fuglsang. I was really hoping that he'd do something explosive and we can see what he can do. But usually in about the 3rd week in those big climbs in the Alps, he might fade. But hopefully we're going to see something explosive. I still think, outright, it's just a pity. He might have a little bit in the legs. Is Mikael Landa. I think he climbs better than most. So I'd love him to sneak away on one of those mountain stages, get some of the time back and become a bit of a contender. Just give Ineos something to chase. So when Landa goes, to me, Nairo is a little bit more defensive. He isn't really going to take that long range. I don't think Froome kind of attack that we saw that one year. I think he's almost by default. If things don't work out, I'm pretty happy with a podium, which I hope isn't his outlook. I think he should be, listen, I'm getting towards the end here. This is my chance. I've got to go all or nothing. And sometimes I think he isn't willing to risk it all to win something. And then I just feel that maybe Adam Yates will run out of legs. So I'm not sure he's a real challenger. But as I said, hopefully someone like Enric Mas can surprise and hang in there. Kruijswijk again, I'm a bit worried whether he can really do it in the Alps in the 3rd week. And the biggest thing in Holland that he gets to ride is a speed hump. So hopefully he can somehow find it in the mountains. So we can live in hope. But as I say, I'm worried that both Ineos guys are at the top and they can just control it from there. That's ideal situation for them, is just leading from the front, dictating terms, and it could be all she wrote. So hopefully everyone almost colludes and they get Pino in a massive break or something and they scare the living daylights out of Ineos.
Right, that's it. I thoroughly agree with you on Ineos. It's almost like a war of attrition for them. They just do everything right in the early stages, and by the time you get to the end of the 10th stage, they've already dropped 2 or 3 contenders, and they're so well positioned. And of course, now when the attacks do start to come, guys are forced to attack them. They're going to probably lose a bit more time to them in the time trial. They're now 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes behind. They can afford to just put Kwiatkowski or whatever on the front and get him to ride, watching his power meter and pegging them back. And that's why I agree with you, Will. I think the one team that can perhaps disrupt them, and I think the way to disrupt them is Movistar. And for me, the way to disrupt them is not necessarily waiting for that final climb. Yes, you can use a lander that maybe Quintana can bridge to, but even putting in now, before it's too late, before everyone's horribly out of contention, putting someone like Valverde in a break or something like that, just something to make them work as hard as possible early on. But I guess we say this every year, and every year Ineos or previously Team Sky always seem to be up to the challenge.
Yeah, well, one thing that cripples Movistar is the fact that they're just always going for the team classification. So they're not willing to play those risks, which they need to do if they want a guy to win. So I think you're right with Valverde there. If they keep him where he is now, which is, I think he's about 3 minutes back, or 3 minutes and 20 seconds back, which is, it's a big enough gap, especially if he goes on one of these weird Pyrenees stages where we've got some climbs earlier on. He could really cause some disruption. But going back to what you were saying before about maybe attacking before the final climb, I think that's definitely what you need to do. I think time and time again, it's been shown that these time gaps just aren't made up on the final climb. The favourites need to attack early if they're going to take any sort of sizable gap. And it's getting into the realms now where Ineos are going to have these sizable gaps after the TT, after these stages. So yeah, they just need to go for it. Quite simple.
Yeah, and you said it's often a case, and Couch touched on it as well, is sometimes, are you prepared to attack? Like a guy like Nibali, obviously he's well out of it here. He's out of the equation. But if he's in contention in a Grand Tour, he's not thinking of second, he's not thinking of third. He's prepared to risk everything to try and win. And if he doesn't win and he comes 12th, it actually doesn't bother him. He's just there purely to win. And you feel that Movistar need more of that sort of a approach if they're going to trouble Ineos. I am a bit disappointed in Fuchslang losing time because I thought, Astana could also put them under some pressure, and hopefully they still can. Just before we close, guys, I want to get your opinion on one of the other jerseys, which is, I suppose, going to really start hotting up now, and that's the King of the Mountains, the polka dot. I was looking at the betting, and I mean, Alaphilippe is a sort of 7-2 favorite, but I'm always fine with this, with the King of the Mountains. I don't even try and back the winner at the start of the tour because invariably things change. I mean, for argument's sake, like a Richie Porte could fall out of contention. Now suddenly he targets the polka dot and that. But is anyone you fancy that you think is really eyeing out this King of the Mountains, Will?
For me, so I've just got the KOM guys up here now. There has been a lot of points scored, but they seem to have been hogged by the two last Soudal guys, Wellens and Degent. Whilst I'd love to see Degent chase spots and possibly win polka dots by the end, I just don't know if he's got it in him for these massive climbs. Tim Wellens, I expect him to fade, and I think Ciccone, third week, he's going to crumble because of the Giro that he did. They're the top three guys in the KOM at the moment. And these major points, or the main points, come on the top of these massive high altitude climbs. You've either got to be with the GC contenders or in a break ahead of them and winning the KOM sprints from that break. So I expect someone who falls out the GC battle to go for this in the final week. And I think I'd put all my money now, all in on Romain Bardet, because I think his GC attempt is basically over, which is sad to say. But he should switch his thoughts now to polka dots, because there's nothing better than a Frenchman in polka dots come Paris.
Well, that's interesting, because I was just looking at the betting while you were talking there, Will. And Couch, let me bring you on there. Have you got any idea what price Bardet is for King of the Mountains?
I was just gonna say, Will, you're gonna hear Brent go quiet now because he's quickly gonna get a bet on Bardet now. Yeah, so we're gonna have to go on without him for a minute. He's quickly emptying his bet exchange account right now.
He's 30. Well, I was actually on Sunbet. He's 33-1, and I think 9-1. Sorry, 8-1 for a top three. You like that, Will?
Oh, for a top three, yeah. Although actually, hang on there. So at the end of the tour, the polka dots is always taken back. Well, last year it was Alaphilippe. Was it the year before? Was Froome's won it before?
Yeah.
The second and third places are always taken by a top GC contender, almost inadvertently scoring those points. And it's only ever really won by some guy who actively goes out and gets it. So I don't think I'd ever go for a bet on a place in the KOM. I'd rather just bet on the winner. Unless you are betting on a GC contender. But then you've got to bet on the GC contender that's more likely to win, for example. Bardet's not like that.
I think it's a great point that Will makes. I actually read in a preview that it was it's more focused towards the GC guys this year because there are more points at the end, I think, at the final club than there used to be. So that's a good point where you're probably going to, in the end, have only one or maybe two guys really fighting it out for polka dot in terms of, not being in the GC and the other guys just being in the mix by default. And if we do get ourselves into a Pino who's even further behind after the time trial, he might have to win two big mountain stages just to try and get himself in the mix. And just by winning two, you could actually be right there in the mix and pick up a second or third place. So I actually think that's a good point that we'll make there. But the polka is always good. I've nailed a few beforehand because it's always such nice big prices, but you never really know who's going to come out and target it per se. They're always very sinister about the whole, whether they're going to be going for it or not. And I just think, I know they at one stage talked about Nibley, but I just don't see Nibley as a guy who's willing to work day in and day out to try and get those kind of points. He's a guy who's going to nail down maybe that stage 13. I think that's on the downhill finish. And I think he's going to nail something like that down, stick it up on the wall and say, listen, this is the one I'm going to be going for. And he's going to be all in on that. And he's not going to do all that work for trying to pick up some points. That's not his style. And then again, if it wasn't for a Quintana duty, I'd even say a Landa. Again, he's a guy who likes to ride for personal glory and show he's one of the better mountain goats out there. So he could win a stage definitely. And perhaps the other guy is a Zakarin, but again, he'll probably try and say, listen, one that hasn't got too much descending because I can't descend to save my life. But after that, I might have a go at trying to win one of the mountain stages, but not necessarily. I was actually thinking earlier of I don't know if it was stage 6 or something like that. I saw Omar Frail have a go at one of the stages where he looked to try and get a few mountain points, and then he thought, no, I'm just not going to waste my little sprint on this effort. And I'm hoping someone like that, sticks into a few breaks, pick up a few points, and maybe can win one stage and ride away with it. So I've gone on him, and then I'll have a look at someone. But I agree also with Tony. I think he might run out of gas, and definitely Wellens to me doesn't have the climbing legs to go all the way. And I'm not sure about Thomas de Gent. I think he's pretty happy with what he's done. He'll obviously put up a fight. He'll never lie down, but I just don't think he's the top end on mountain. So we should have a look at someone we can back, but I haven't got someone in mind. I think at 33 on Baudet doesn't sound bad, I think.
Yeah, and I see there's 33-1 on Bernal as well. I see Groot Lem, who was going to come on the show with us, but had a bit of trouble connecting up, so he'll come on a future show. He was saying he took long range on King of the Mountains for Fuchslang and Woods last week. And just a shout out to him on Twitter. I saw an in-play tweet of his where he was on Van Aert today at 40-1. So well played there. Also, just hello to Vin Naidu, who's joined us in the live chat and just said thanks for all the information on Twitter and in the forum. Gents, let's bring this to a close then by calling a winner at this stage. We've got 2 weeks to go. Couch, let me start with you. Who's going to win this Tour de France?
Brent, unfortunately, I think the reason why he shortened so much is in the betting is that people thought he'd ride into form, and then he went and showed good form already on stage 6. I think Geraint Thomas is going to take time on the individual time trial. I think he's going to be pretty fresh come the latter stages of the tour. And I think when push comes to shove, Bernal won't be attacking him, and Bernal could be his biggest challenger. So unfortunately, I'm obviously on Quintana. I hope he can do the magic, but I think Geraint Thomas is going to just grind this one out for the win.
Right, you're going Thomas, and who do you want to win? Let me let you say that quickly. Quintana?
Oh, definitely Quintana. I want to see a Colombian absolutely dominate those climbs and just ride away from us. But as Will said, often we think all this time, and that's why today hurt so much. You work your ass off for 30 seconds on that big climb, unless a guy cracks like Yates style. It's not like you're going to get minutes on them. So it's very tough holding that back. But I'm definitely hoping Nairo can turn the clock back and do what Roger Federer didn't do yesterday and win one for all time's sake.
Well, you do know Federer lost yesterday, but he said he did.
That's why I said, but do what he couldn't do.
Oh, couldn't do. I thought you said he could do it. I was going to say, I hope you aren't going to a bookmaker to collect that bet. Just before I bring you in there, Will, Groot Lem confirming you got 40-1 Fuchslang and 100-1 Woods on the King of the Mountains. I particularly think that Fuchslang one could be quite a good runner if he falls out of contention. Will, who's going to win this? And let's also ask you, who would you like to win it, and who do you think will win it?
They're the same person, to be fair. Thibaut Pinot.
Right.
Thibaut Pinot will win the Tour de France. I'm going to stick with what I said at the start. He is 2 minutes and 33 seconds down now, but by the end, he'll be minutes ahead. Mark my words.
Right. Let me quickly have a look at his price there, because obviously that would have gone out quite a lot. No, he's still been treated with respect to the betting. I'm just looking here. He's a little bit of 14-1. Hey, Will, thanks very much. Great chatting with you.
No worries. No worries.
Sorry?
No worries. You can have me back whenever you want. I'm happy to come back.
Excellent. It was great having you, and look forward to your preview of stage 11. That's at
so
Inside Peloton 96.
Yeah, you can find me there.
Excellent. Thanks, Will, for joining us. And Couch, I must say, I know you're a fan of Will's previews as well. Tremendous amount of effort goes into those.
Geez, Brent, it's brilliant. I don't know where he finds the time, and okay, I mean, I do quite a lot of writing, so I suppose I know where he fits it in, but he does an incredibly detailed job of that. And as you said, that's like I actually want to go to bed, and then I end up waiting for his updates, so it ends up getting close to 12 there at the end after I've read it and had my first bet, because I don't want the bookies to get sniff of it, so I first have to get my bets on as well. So thanks, mate. We definitely appreciate it from this side.
No, cheers, man. It's great to hear some good feedback.
Excellent. I see you picked up a lot of followers on Twitter as well. Which
I have. Yeah, it's absolutely exploded, which is really good.
I saw you said something. You picked up like 900 followers. I mean, some people have been on Twitter since 2009, and they haven't got that many followers in total. So really great work. It's a sign when you're doing work like that people are appreciating it. So very well done. Thanks to the guys who did join us in the live chat. We'll definitely do another show sometime. And for me, one winner of the Tour de France, please, Nairo Quintana. I love the route for this man, and I think he's going to be all over them in the final week. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's been great having the guests on. We've got a rest day tomorrow. We can focus on the rest of the tour, which is going to be really exciting indeed. If you haven't subscribed, do so below, and we'll catch you over the next coming days with some more previews.